I'll introduce myself. My name is Edward Motebi, working with The World is Watching International. I'm a human rights activist as well, and The World is Watching International is a news blog which is dedicated at spreading the news of human rights violation or human rights violation scenes happening in these African countries, and they are not broadcasted in the Western world. We are putting our focus currently on the situation happening in Uganda and the political atmosphere there, which has been reported in several medias being violent and so brutal. Tonight or right now, I have Mr. Kiwanuka, who is going to introduce himself as well to us, and then we shall pick up from there. So Mr. Kiwanuka, please, the floor is yours to say something about yourself.
Good morning, viewers. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to be here. Surely the world must be watching continually, non-stop, to make sure that as it was said after the genocide in Germany during the Hitler regime, that never again. So the world must watch and act, and we make sure that never again shall we see people killed for their being, which means having opinions, having political views, and all that. Basically, my name's Kiwanuka Nsereko. I'm a native of Uganda, currently sojourned in the USA as a political refugee. And I left Uganda under the Museveni regime, which couldn't take my opinions. I was detained, tortured, and several other abuses. And this is not an isolated case. It has been a continuum when it comes to human rights abuse in Uganda. So I'm an activist, and what put me in trouble was to stand up against the regime's abuse of human rights, primarily the undeclared genocide that went on in northern Uganda in the Acholi sub-region.
Okay, we are here basically about the case of your lost son, who you said was kidnapped. I don't know how long ago. You're going to be explaining to us how long it is now. So do you mind telling us about your son and what exactly happened?
My son was kidnapped on the 6th of January. That's basically 9 days to the polling day in Uganda. First of all, even though the focus is on my son, Balikuddembe Victor Makenya, I would like to state at the very onset that there are thousands of Ugandans who have been arrested outside the law. Many have turned up dead. Others have just disappeared. Their whereabouts are unknown. So I want that to sink in, that yes, I speak focusing on my son, but there are several other people who have been disappeared by the Museveni regime. So my son was taken on the 6th of January, around midnight. People went to his house in a place called Jalamba. That's my rural home in Mpigi district in the sub-county of Buama in Maokota South. They knocked, because my son also runs a grocery store, a front shop. They knocked, and he thought maybe somebody wanted something late. So they opened, and when they opened, the people who were masked just jumped in, grabbed him, his girlfriend was slapped, and they dragged him into two waiting Toyota Hiace vans. These vans are commonly known as drone. They are primarily used by the CMI, which is Chieftainess of Military Intelligence, the intelligence arm of the army.
Yeah.
And also they are used by the SFC, which is the army charged with the protection of the president and other special duties. We maybe when we have time, we can discuss that, because that branch of the army is a militia. It's not catered for in Uganda's law at all. The UPDF Act doesn't provide for such outfits. But this is an army which is commanded by the president's son. So these are the primary organizations within the establishment in Uganda that use the drone or the Toyota Hiace vans with the tinted windows, and they've disappeared several people. So that day he was taken away. In the nearby villages, there were 3 other people who were taken, and they also have not been found. So we've been looking everywhere ever since. The family 2 days later attempted to go to Buwama police station, which is about maybe 60 kilometers south of Kampala on Masaka Road, to file a case of a missing person. The police refused to take the statement. So we have been trying to ask friends and people who have connection within the military intelligence and the army and the detention centers, and those who we haven't been successful to know where my son is.
Yeah. So why do you think the police is refusing to take in a case of a missing person from your side? Why would the police, which is entitled or which has the mandate to do that, to you know, take in a file of that nature, refused to do that?
You see, what used to be security forces in Uganda are actually what I would now describe as insecurity forces. Okay. Instead of providing security to people, they are actually the ones that are bringing the insecurity within the population. It's the same with their prosecution. Instead of prosecuting people, they've become persecutors. So because of that, within the police system, and if you look at the way the police is organized or structured, it is structured with political interests. So the people who are in command at almost every center are people who are there not as professional police officers, but as political appointees. And many of them, actually, if you look at what they call the regional police commanders across the country, unfortunately, they all come basically from the same district.
Yeah.
And amazingly, when Museveni talks about tribalism from other circles, you wonder when you look at his appointment catalog, the way it looks. So I think it's because of that. And they know that once you file a missing person case and they give you a file number, then you can pursue that in the legal channels. So if they deny you a report, you can't even go to court. Yeah. Because the first thing that you will be asked if you are going to file a habeas corpus or for any legal relief, you are going to be asked for a case file. Did you report this person as missing? And when did you report? So if you don't have that, you are unable.
True.
And that is what's happening here. That's why, in my guess, they might have other reasons, but that's my understanding.
So what do you think is the reason behind your son's disappearance, basically?
My son's disappearance is plain and simple political. Okay. Yes, personally, I have had a long disagreement with the regime from basically day one when they came to power because of what they were doing as they were coming to power. Their murderous, bloody hands were very visible to me. And I challenged them from day one. I think when Museveni came to power on the 25th of January, he says 26th of January, that's another story to be discussed why he chose a day later instead of the very day he came into power. If you ask, you will find so many people disappeared on the 25th of January when he entered the capital. So he doesn't want to be responsible. He moves the day he came to power to the 26th of January. But I challenged them about their human rights record, primarily about the manner in which they were treating the people who had relationship with the previous government. Okay. Everybody who was basically had relationship with the military in the previous government was being arrested and detained in military barracks. So we challenged that. And we said this cannot continue. Then they decided to transfer all those people to Ruzila and called them lodgers. And they had about 6,000 people detained as lodgers, no trial, for years in a Ruzila maximum prison. And you know, Ruzila was actually, I think, originally constructed to house 700 people. So you can imagine the congestion and everything. People were dying of diseases while in detention. So these are issues that we raised. And because of that, I've been on the enemy list of the regime. That's why they forced me out and I fled. There was attempts on my life. So that's one factor, which I believe if they want to hurt me, they will go after my family. Then the other factor is that the younger man, in his own right, was a supporter of Bobi Wine. And many supporters of Bobi Wine, this is Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, are being hounded across the country. Before the elections, as the case is for my son, and even after the elections, even people who worked as returning officers for Bobi Wine, because the government is scared that these people are going to go to court and testify that we did not sign off on the DRA forms, they are being disappeared. So Uganda is in a real situation that needs the world to watch and act.
That's our focus, actually. The next question is going to sound a little bit vague because we've almost clearly stated it in your statement already so far. But just for a record, what do you think as who has your son? Who is having your son? Who is making all these people disappear? You know, a number of people have been watching the news in Uganda, and so many people are crying. So many families have lost their children. And in a very similar manner, just like your son disappeared, who is having these people? Where are they being detained that you or your family or other families cannot trace them?
You see, Museveni and the group that he works with, these are very diabolic people. Okay. They work on intimidation. Museveni has never been a person to negotiate. When he says he wants to negotiate, he's about grabbing you and putting you into his own group. He never allows the alternative opinion to survive. That's him from day one. So even if you read his thesis on Frantz Fanon, you will see how he thinks of violence as a way to heal some of the ills that happen in societies. So that's one thing, that the government has all these younger people. They have them. If this was another organization, we would have heard from the government.
Yeah.
They would have identified and said, so and so is kidnapping. We are investigating this. But these are government vehicles that run with no number plates or with disguised plates in the city. The police has accepted actually that they own these plates. We have seen that a few people who have come out when they were kidnapped, they came out of government holding centers. Right? They are found in Chileka at the JATT. They are found at Kororo, Summit View Barracks. They are found in Machindye. Some are kidnapped. Then you see them in court after maybe a month or two, and they are dumped at the Kitalia, the new Kitalia Maximum Collection Center. So there is no doubt in my mind that my son and all the other people who are disappeared were kidnapped and taken by the government. There is no doubt. If this was any other organization, one, with the level of people who we think maybe in the last 1 month across the country, we are looking at maybe about 3,000 people. They can't just disappear, and the government has made no statement whatsoever in this regard. So they are guilty. They are guilty.
So just before the last question, do you mind taking us through the violations that you have probably, you could have not witnessed them because you're not in Uganda, but at least to your knowledge, what are some of the violations, human rights violations that you know of? Of course, there is kidnap, but there could be some other more, maybe killing, arbitrary killing or something of that kind. Do you have any statement you can give us of the violations that surfaced in the Ugandan previous elections?
Well, where do I start to document these barbaric? Actually, I don't want to use the word barbaric because the barbars were not as bad as this regime. So if you see what the barbars basically just stole goats from the Italians and from North Africa, and they never killed that many people the way this regime is slaughtering people. So there should be another word that is can be used to define the way Museveni is
conducted. Some names from Uganda, please, for the world to know. Point out some.
There was a younger man. His name was Ssemagulu, okay, based in Nansana. He was kidnapped. He was taken by the police. Bloody daylight, dead. Okay. There was a boxer in Iwaise whom the president confessed that he had sent his people to pick him up, and they shot the younger man. And what was his crime? Allegedly, because in the gym, he was training one of the people who were Bobby Wine's bodyguards. Okay. And the president said, yeah, unfortunately, the boy was killed. I wanted to talk to him, but now I will give some money to his family. Okay. The other day, a baby, 7 months, was shot in a massacre. And the president's wife said, yeah, we will give the family some money. Okay. So for them, life is like buying a t-shirt. You kill someone, you give the family some money, done deal. So, but the litany of human rights abuses is dated when it comes to Museveni. Okay. You can go back at 1979 in Mbarara when he was working with the Rurangaranga. They basically wiped out the entire Islamic community in Mbarara. Killed all of them. Okay. You come to the 1980s war. There is a fundamental question that I always try to ask people. When you look at where the war was primarily fought, that removed the Obote and the Rutwa government, it was fought in the central region, in Uganda.
Yeah.
Museveni was based in Luwero. Okay. There were other rebel organizations. We had FUNA, the former Uganda National Army of Isaac Alumago. We had Uganda National Rescue Front of Brigadier Moses Sali. Those two operated out of West Nile. Then we had UFM of the late Dr. Andrew Takome Kaira, who was assassinated under Museveni. And we have the one of, we had of Dr. Luanga and Fedemo of George Nkwanga Kitata Muhima. These people, actually, most of them are dead. Yeah. All those leaders are dead, and they've died under mysterious circumstances. Okay, Nkwanga is one of those who died on the 25th when Museveni entered Kampala. So that's a story for another day that will be told. But why do we, when you look at it, Nkwanga's organization was operating in Mukono, yeah, and a part of northern Mpigi. Yeah. Kaira's organization was operating in Mpigi, southern Mpigi, Mubende, and Masaka. Museveni was in Luwero. Why don't we find the same amount of humanist cows in these other areas where the army engaged with these rebels as we find in Luwero? Why is it that the people were only killed en masse in Luwero? The evidence to that is revealed in what happened in Acholi when Museveni carried out the Breeze Krieg, and what happened in Teso, in Mukula, when he took people and loaded them in a train wagon and they lit fire under the train wagon. And the government has confessed to carrying out these crimes. So the problem has been that nobody had actually effectively pulled away the curtain for the whole world to look at. And if Bobby Wine has any achievement, I think that's one achievement he has given us. Bobby Wine grabbed the curtain and pulled it away. And everybody is looking inside and is seeing how diabolic Museveni is.
Mr. Lawrence, for the interest of time, again, let's mention names of the people in government, because when we say government in general, this current government, let's not, okay, maybe for the next time we can talk about the history of Museveni and all the atrocities he has done. But now let's focus on these recent things which have happened in the elections in the previous few years. Which names should we put to record in the security? Who are the backbones, or which people should we point out exactly?
No, the ongoing murders are pointedly towards the son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Okay. Period. There is no mincing words about it. Okay, he is the one who is actually almost in charge of the military, the CMY, the SFC, and those are untouchable. They do what they will. So that's the one name that people need to look at and ask questions.
Yeah. So my last question, Mr. Lawrence, what do you want the world to know? What do you want the world to do? What can the world do to save the growing, worsening situation in Uganda? Your last words.
Yeah. The world needs to act, not to talk, but to act. Museveni cannot sustain himself in power without being funded or helped by the international donor agencies. When we talk about donor agencies, people say, well, now some of the money goes to health, some of the money is needed. No. When you give Museveni money to rehabilitate Mulago Hospital, then the money from the tax base is used to construct torture chambers. It's used to buy weapons. So the news should be pulled tight around this regime. The international community must stop canoodling with the Museveni regime. We see things like what Dedrich, the Minister for African Affairs in the UK, is doing, because he has business interests in Uganda. He's an investor there. Okay, these are things that must be stopped, and we put the human value above everything else. Because Museveni is not only a problem to Uganda. We can see his destabilization going across to Congo, to Central African Republic, Southern Sudan, and he's now eyeing Kenya. So what do I want the world to do? Make a strong military embargo would be a way to start, but also to demand that the choice of the people that they made on the 14th of January is respected. You can't have an election like what took place in Uganda, and the Electoral Commission publishes results on its website, and when you add up the percentage, it adds up to 103%. That alone tells you that there is some nonsensical happenings. Now, they pulled that down, but up to today, they have not been able to publish the official results. They are still tinkering and trying to figure out the map. So the international community, it's good to watch, but it's more important that they act and put their foot on the ground, because when the whole thing goes wrong, we don't want to hear the apologies as the people apologized in Rwanda after the genocide. They were warned it was going to happen. They didn't act. They acted very late. Uganda is on the verge of exploding. The international community must move in. This is not about Uganda. This is about humanity. We must solve this problem now. All the body count will be unpleasing to anyone who has a heart.
Indeed, the world shouldn't just watch, and the world shouldn't just listen, but the world should act. Thank you so much, Mr. Lawrence, for your time. We are very pleased to have you, and we are so sorry about the missing son. We are going to do our best, of course, to see that we put this to the world to watch. And again, I call upon the world not to just watch, but to act. So thank you much for your time.
Okay. Thank you.